Hi, I'm Kathy Dodson.
And I'm Jocelyn Lindsay. Welcome to another episode of 5 Minute Indie Insights, publishing tips and tricks, because the best publishing advice is within the time of a coffee break.
You have written an entire novel. Congratulations! You've probably been through that novel a time or two to make it better. Perhaps you've been through it more than a time or two, maybe a lot more than that.
Yeah, and after going through it so many times, how do you know when to stop? I think that's such a huge question because you can keep editing, you can keep making the book better, right? Because the flip side is, when do you know, how do you know when you've done enough? You can keep going and you can keep editing, but when do you stop? We want your novel to be the best it can be. And if you're indie publishing, that means the quality of the writing and everything else should be on par with traditionally published novels, maybe even better. So, we're going to take you through the strategies we use to determine when our book is ready to publish. Kathy, why don't you get us started?
I'm happy to, but I have to warn you, it's a lot. I fast draft, which means that I do not edit as I go. Instead, I wait until I have a finished novel before going back and making any changes. And then I make a lot of changes. Here's my process. First, complete the first draft. Then I set it aside for 30 days because I need to forget the story a little bit and come back with fresh eyes. When it's time, I read through the novel on the computer to reacquaint myself with the story. And the main thing here is to just see how the story hangs together. Then I print a copy and I go through that with a red pen. And because I've read through it once, I know where to expect the problems and I make extensive notes on how to fix any issues. After that, you've got to input all those changes into the computer. Start with the big issues first, really important. Don't fix a typo on a sentence that isn't going to be there after you fix a big issue. And then after this revision, I go through the manuscript one more time before I send it to either an editor or my critique partners. When I get their comments back, I revise the novel one more time, taking their comments into account. And then I use an online editor. There are lots of these. I use Pro Writing Aid to help me with issues like grammar, readability, overused words, sentence length, and a range of other writing issues. I don't always take the advice from the program, but it does help me improve the manuscript. Then I listen to the story out loud. I used to read it to myself, but now I have Word read it for me because they've really improved their computer voices. And then when that's all done, and it is the very best I can make it, I send it to beta readers to find out if there are issues with plot, pacing, or characters. And these are just regular readers. And then I revise the document one more time with their changes. I send the manuscript to the proofreader after that. And then I incorporate the proofreader's comments and corrections into the manuscript. And finally, I listen to that thing one more time.
That's 14. That so you're going through 14 times. You're looking through your manuscript 14 times.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of writers realize how many times. I think a lot of writers think it's a simple process of write it, edit it, send it to proof, publish it. And
They
I
need to be better than that.
yeah. And so I go through a very similar process. I don't think I had ever really thought of how many times I'm going through the novel, but while you're saying, I'm thinking like, okay, yeah. The only thing I'm not doing that you do is I don't have critique partners that I send my novels to. But yeah, however you edit, whatever process you decide works for you. And you may see that there's a few in that 14 that you aren't doing, like critique partners or whatever, like I am. The most important thing is that you have to make your novel the best it can be at each step of the revision process. Because by the time you're sending it to beta readers, and hopefully you're having somebody read it before you send it out, you want them to have the absolute best version of your book, because if nothing else, you do not want them being distracted by typos or grammar problems. You want them reading a clean version of your book. because their input is valuable, because you're often too close to the story and you need to get somebody else in there to see what's going on. But if your version that you're sending anybody is riddled with errors that you knew about but you didn't fix, they're going to have a hard time giving you feedback on the story. You're just making their lives more difficult than it needs to be.
That's right. And the same thing goes for when you send it to a proofreader. You want them to focus on the things where you need help, like making sure your manuscript meets the Chicago Manual of Style standards and finding those errors that your eyes just don't see, and they won't. You really need an outside person to proofread. So don't rely on a proofreader to fix typos you know are there. Fix those yourself and give them the very best manuscript that you can produce, and then that will help you even more.
Yeah. And even after doing all of this, you or your readers or somebody is likely going to find a stray typo or two that got through. I mean, we see it in traditionally published books. There will occasionally be something that is not there. A book is a huge document. You're talking oftentimes 300 plus pages, you know, 80, 90,000 words, and it's hard for that to be perfect. But the good thing is when you're self-publishing, you can go back and fix any errors you find. All you have to do is upload the next version of the document. So we are both in the editing process, and that's got to be it for this episode because we've got to get back to editing.
That's right.
So hit subscribe and let us know that you're enjoying our videos, and we'll keep making them and you keep listening. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.